Hey, this is Jack Downs, of course, with another video lesson for the decreasing number of you who are unable to come to class, mostly because of testing or maybe because you're quarantined. And you would have received email from me saying, especially if it's because of testing, we really need to get that straightened out this week because next week there will be penalties if you're absent just because of testing. This is going to be kind of a short lesson because most of our class today will be taken up with presentations. Students will be doing their quotation presentation is due today, and those who were unable to get to class because of testing before and have the collage presentation to do will have that due today. So we'll be doing those. And if you obviously have not been able to do those because you're watching this lesson and you probably therefore weren't even able to practice because you didn't get released in time to do it. What I'm going to be doing is I really would like you all to think about doing practice with me on Friday. I will be sending email out about that Thursday or Friday or Friday. Because I'd really like to be in a position where on Monday, in addition to the other lesson I plan, we'll do some makeup presentations. So you could do your quotation and collage presentations on Monday. The next class, essentially, which should be your first class after really in person now, to make that transition. So that's my goal, and we'll stay in touch about making arrangements to meet on that day. Let me just go ahead with the brief lesson of the other stuff besides presentations that we will do today. And to do that, as usual, I'm going to share my screen so I can show you that we're looking at Moodle, and we'll look at what it was due and what is due. There's still a lot of work happening. There's this class is kind of front-loaded, lots of reading and other stuff going on, and you have to really do it because you have to study guide and stuff, and that's what's going on. So yes, quotation presentation is due today. I assigned, 2 classes ago, I think, the entomology presentation or name presentation. And I even ran through it again in my last video lesson. It's for real. It's going to be given in 1 week. So you got to get going on it. You need to do the internet research on your name. You need to get in touch with somebody in your family about your name, probably parents or grandparents or aunt or uncle or brother or sister, about how you got your name. You need to do at least 1 interview. You need to develop a transcript from that interview as is described in the assignment sheet. That transcript typed up will need to be handed in. So this time the presentation actually has paperwork that you have to do, right? So that'll be handed in. And then the third main idea is, of course, your personal reflection on your name. Then you need to build an introduction and build a conclusion. And likely next class, I'll spend a few minutes talking about converting that information to your index cards, which is no big magic thing. After you develop that information, you take the notes, you get it all together on pieces of paper, then you actually are going to do it in a much more abbreviated outline-like form on index cards. If you've been able to come to class, you can get index cards from me. If you don't, find some of your own. You have to have index cards. You will write more clearly, more directly what words you plan to use for your introduction there. It's not unusual to have introduction written out as a couple of sentences, perhaps the very beginning of it, your attention-getting statements, and then maybe some bullet points that will become your signposted preview statement, which is required, right? Then you'll move on to like a Roman numeral number 1, which is your first main idea, and you'll list in there certainly the sources you're going to say, which each should have a qualifier, 2 qualifiers, ideally to add credibility. Then Roman number, and also what it is that they say. Again, that's more like an outline form, like keywords or bullet points, just to get you going. Not all the words you're going to say, just things to key off from. Then Roman number 2, you're going to write in some key points from your interview that you did with how you got your name, how your name was given to you, and maybe write in a full direct quote if there's something particular you want to use as a direct quotation. And then Roman number 3, probably just some keywords. Then the conclusion. So another chunk of index card or separate index card. You will make sure to do a long pause before the conclusion, and you'll have something. You'll make some notes that link you back to the beginning, and then in a very brief format, review the main ideas again, and ideally have some kind of a clincher at the end. Anyway, so there you go. I don't do it again. And sort of told you already how to convert index cards. They have to make sure to be written clearly and legibly also. You can always pick index cards up on my office door too. Just walk by my office and pick them up on the door. So that's going on. There's a note here about the rhetorical analysis paper. It's still coming out there in the future, and it'll surprise you and come along too quickly. Look for it in the schedule, look on your original assignment. It's something that's a long-term assignment, which is in the background. You're supposed to be working on it. Study guide 1 is due next class. So you should be finishing up your study guide now. You finished the reading. In fact, I'm actually assigning the first chapter of reading for the next study guide. I won't give you the next study guide until next class. I'm also hoping that almost everybody's there in person for that. But those of you who didn't get the study guide and did things on paper, that's fine too. You can just hand it in that way. So study guide 1 is due next class. You're supposed to read chapter 8 next class, which is the start of study guide 2, really, that reading. Yes, study guide 2 will be assigned next class. And you're supposed to work on and practice your entomology, work on your specific purpose statement exercise, which is new. I'm going to tell you about that in just a minute. And then the advisor interview is to do in a week. So you should have already scheduled and probably already talked to your advisor and be transcribing the notes at this point. So that's going to be due. So please don't forget about that. Don't just blow it off. Get in touch with your advisor, write some questions up, do an interview, take notes, get at least 2 direct quotations, transcribe it, write it out, type it all up, be prepared to hand it in class. Or did I say that's supposed to be on Moodle? Let me just take a check and see here. Let's scroll down and see. I have a remote material, COVID assignments, study guides. I've not released, actually no, I do have the advisor interview is set up as a Dropbox. So you would actually give me Word document or PDF on that stuff. And actually, I'm going to probably make a Dropbox for the entomology stuff too. So actually, either of those you can put in the Dropbox or give to me on paper. It's fine either way. But there's a Dropbox for the advisor interview. So that was the review of the schedule and so on. So let me go ahead and tell you about the assignment. This is a handout which is available to you. If you go to the assignment and handout folder right there, if you scroll down to this one, it's called Specific Purpose Statement Exercise. That handout, click on that and you'll get the handout. And this is what it looks like. This is the handout. And in class, you would get it in class as a piece of paper. So the goal here is I've reviewed 2 classes now. I've reviewed specific purpose statements, general purpose, central theses, main ideas, and then also now in the last class, how to label them and categorize them, right? Now it's time for you to do it. You've seen me do quite a number of them and kind of evaluate them. So now you have to do it also. And you have until Monday, March 8th. So that is a little ways away, but again, not that long. And you have to bring an on-paper copy of this to class that day because you're going to be using it in class. So having it is going to be important because you need to use it in class that day. We're going to be doing exercise in class with it, with the stuff, which is your assignment. And then, of course, you'll be handing it in also then. So I need you to essentially research and create these starting documents for what would be 5 different informational presentations. You're not going to do these presentations. You're not going to fully develop them. You're not going to fully research them or anything. Really, all you're going to be doing is developing the SPS, the general purpose you already know, to inform. The SPS, the specific purpose statement, you're going to write that. You're going to label it as a topical, chronological, spatial. The SPS, that's COPE. Is it concept, object, process, event? Label your SPS. Write a good SPS. Make sure it really is informative. Make sure it fulfills our criteria. And then label it as one of those COPE, C-O-P-Es. Then you're going to create the central thesis that goes with the SPS. And to do that, of course, you're really going to have to know your main ideas. So how are you going to know that? You're going to have to do a little research. You're going to have to provide at least 2 sources. So you're going to go online probably and or to the library and research the topic a little bit. Remember the one I did on snowshoes, for instance? How did I know that there were 3 modern kinds of snowshoes? I just went and researched it online. I found some sources, and I wrote those types of snowshoes down, and so on. So you don't actually have to go to the point of getting all the information from the source, but at least you need to do enough to be able to get what would be the main ideas of this kind of fictional presentation that you're not really doing. Truth is, it's possible you might use one of these again in the future. So keep that in mind. It's not really just fictional work. You might actually use one of these, but you're not going to be required to. So you've 5 SPSs, 5 central theses, and then from that, each one has to have main ideas written with Roman numerals and written fully out. Remember, those come right from the central thesis. You saw me do those in class. And then you're going to provide at least 2 sources that are essentially give you that information. 2 sources. And how are you going to write those sources? I want you to use APA citations. So you go to page 130 and look at the figure 7.4 and explains how to do an APA citation for different kinds of sources, web sources, books, magazines, newspapers, and so on. So use that format for your source. So essentially, each one of these little chunks has a minimum two source bibliography. The central thesis needs to be given an organizational pattern. Is it topical, chronological, spatial, or causal? And then it says your main ideas. So the main ideas come directly from that. So each one of these is going to be a chunk of text, probably not a full page, but most of a page probably. And then you'll do the next one, the next one, the next one. However, not going to just do any at random. I want you to have at least one object, one process, one event, and one concept. And then obviously there's going to be one that's going to be one of those repeated too. So I want you to cover those labels with at least one from each of those. You're doing 5, there's 4 labels, so you'll have one that's doubled. And every one of those gets labeled. So this is a good way to practice. When you actually come down and sit down to do these, you can use your textbook and the information in there, but hopefully you can use the information, hopefully the notes you took from me about this also, right? How I wrote them on the board, how I had Nate write them on the board if you're in class, or how I did them in the Word document here in front of you. So that's the assignment. Don't delay, get working on it. You got a lot going on, lots of balls keep in the air, but that's what this course is like. Good luck and stay in touch. And if you're having testing problems, get with the testing. And let me stop my share, and then I'm going to stop my recording. See you later.